Hello there and welcome to this special screening of the History Rocks YouTube clip. This is very exciting. I don't normally do things on YouTube, largely because I never want to see myself. And the thing I do like about podcasts is that you can be doing other things as you're listening to it, which is great, driving to work or on your way to school, on the bus or whatever it is. But with this, of course, it will require you to stare at a screen blankly. So if you haven't heard of History Rocks before, do head over to our website, historyrocks.co.uk, especially if you are a teacher of AQA A level history right now. We've got lots of stuff there, lots of resources, lots of things that you might like. We do lots of training and things like that for you. If you're a student, you are definitely going to like our historyrocks.co.uk/podcasts, which cover a range of things on the skills that you will require for this forthcoming summer's exam. So if you've not seen it, go and head over there and take a look now. So the reason we're on screen today, though, is because I want to talk through an extract of an answer to a Tudor paper from 2017, because what it does do is highlight some of the highlights and lowlights, the strengths and weaknesses, the common pitfalls, shall we say, of student answers in the exam. Now, this is not an AQA endorsed video. These are the opinions of myself, but I will trust me, you're going to like this. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to find it useful. Okay, so the question in 2017, all the preamble at the beginning, goes something like, how convincing are the arguments in these three extracts are in relation to the crisis faced by the Tudors 1533 to 1558. And the first extract, if you go back and have a look at the 2017 paper, the first extract of that question, which you'll find on the official AQA website alongside the mark scheme, is written by someone called W. Jones. And in it, he's basically saying that there was a significant crisis during this period, affecting things like dynasty and security. So the big job you have, isn't it, is about finding the main arguments and then the subsidiary arguments of the extract. So the subsidiary arguments being like the splinter arguments of the extract, and giving a bit of own knowledge, etc., to support or challenge the views within it. So let's have a look here. Now, this is a common thing I've seen in student answers. It starts off with an introduction. Now, for section A, component 1, the extracts do not need an introduction. The only thing you're going to be doing in an introduction, really, is either scene set, which this one does, talks about Edward VI randomly, actually, not even linked to the question. It makes the assumption that there was a crisis, if you look at it. Or your introduction is likely to compare the extracts together and talk about which is the more convincing, which is not necessary. It's not required for this unit at all. So let's have a look. We've got this random little introduction here. It goes into then an argument, or it suggests it's an argument, from the extract. There are a few things that throw up a red flag to me straight away. Notice things like this. Jones in extract A describes. Further down the paragraph here, we have extract A also shows. Now, to me, because of the way it's constructed, that sentence, it sounds as though they're just going to describe what's in the extract itself. And that's exactly what we've got. In fact, the first bit that's quoted here is maybe the second or third line down on the extract. They haven't tackled the question, they haven't identified what the main argument is. They're going into this little paraphrasing of what the extract says. They're not debating as to whether there was a crisis or not, and whether those arguments are convincing or not. In fact, I can't even find the word convincing in that first paragraph, if you notice. So they go through this thing about Henry's frantic quest. We've then got some general knowledge sort of tapped on here. Now, the knowledge that you're using has a purpose. It's not to tell me everything that you know about the topic at all. The own knowledge is meant to actually be used to either support or challenge the argument that you're tackling at that particular point. So if it's got something like before Henry VIII died, he ensured that Edward's new government would be comprised of so many trusted members, etc., etc. How does that prove or disprove the argument? How does that support or challenge the argument? It doesn't. There's no connecting sentence between whatever the argument was meant to be, even though they've not really actually said what it is, and then the evidence that follows. So a better way to do it is to say something like, the main argument in extract A is this, and evidence to support this would be this, and making sure, therefore, you've got some evaluative language in it, whether it's convincing or not. So this carries on. It kind of loses the plot, really, actually, because it starts talking about Edward, starts talking about some of the individuals, Mary, and being the rightful heir to the throne, with Henry's divorce from Catherine, and then how his relationship deteriorated, and then Elizabeth. It's got really nothing to do with a crisis. It's just describing the events that occurred in that period. Equally, this next bit, extract also shows security of the monarch was reflected directly in religious policies. Again, that's not the focus of the question. The focus of the question was in relation to crises. So it had to keep, this answer should have kept going back to the idea as to whether there was crises or not. What is the extract arguing in relation to whether those crises existed or the nature of them or anything else? But again, starts talking now about Edward and Mary and religious policies and international relationships with a bit of just descriptive knowledge tacked on. So you'll notice in this answer we have an introduction, which is unnecessary. We haven't identified the main arguments at all, as it appears in extract A. What it's done is it's gone through a sort of line-by-line description of what the extract says and then a description of own knowledge. But neither of these two paragraphs have really attempted to weigh up how convincing or not it is at all. So that's a problem. Because it's not really actually answering the question at all. In which case, something that looks a bit like this would probably get sort of towards the level 1 end, maybe level 2, if it had any mentions later on in the answer about the issue of crises and the arguments within the extract. But because it's so disjointed, because it really doesn't have much of a link to the question at all here, I wouldn't give it much more than maybe 6 marks or something like that. So consequently, it's not doing as it should do. So it won't do particularly well. So that brings us to the end of just this first little bit of an analysis. And, I'll have a look at some other answers as well with you. And do the similar thing, what's strong about it, what's weak about it. But hopefully this will get you thinking about your own answers and maybe some of the pitfalls that you also do yourself. Okay, so I'm going to salute you. I wish you farewell. Go and work really hard. Go and do lots of revision. And hopefully I'll see you soon. Come and head over to the historyrocks.co.uk podcasts in the meantime. Take care now. Bye.